Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss Kill Bill Volume 2, starring Uma Thurman, Daryl Hannah, David Carradine, and Michael Madsen, and directed by Quentin Tarantino. I gotta say, I remember seeing 1 3/4 of it the first time I saw it, and then we caught the rest of the half like a day or maybe a week later, if I remember correctly. And I remember being like kind of in shock in some scenes. I'll talk about it. Let's just get into the movie. We started a church wedding rehearsal as they go through what's going to happen at the wedding, with the bride returned by Uma Thurman and Tommy as we meet Rufus, played briefly by Samuel L. motherfucking Jackson. And she goes outside and sees Bill, returned by David Carradine, found the bride, and all of this is shot in black and white. And what was Mr. Tarantino thinking of shooting this prologue in black and white? Because this was very distracting for me. Bill's brother Bud, returned by Michael Madsen, is a fucking horrible character, and I had problems in El Paso, Texas. In this movie, I should say, set in El Paso, Texas, because I thought it was going to be a kung fu movie. Starting with how it looks, and the cinematography looks dreadful. Bud's boss is such a complete asshole to him, and I don't like him either. Other than the bride and Bill, none of these characters are working for me at all, and that's a shame. Bud shoots the bride and calls Elle Driver, returned by Daryl Hannah, for what reason? Because he wants to give Elle his sword. Or actually, not just kidding, her sword, the bride's sword, on a condition that she suffers to death, and Bud agrees and puts her in a cemetery. And I just, oh my god, noted this, and I just wanted this movie to move on, and that was my biggest problem. And this movie is longer than Volume 1 by 25 minutes. And there were some long stretches that really could have been cut out of this movie. Bill takes the bride to a Master B, let's call him, who, as he teaches her kung fu, tortures her half to death. And I love the way he plays with his beard every single time. It just cracks me up every single time, and that's what a kung fu master would do. The bride punches her way out of the casket by the moves she was taught by Kung Fu Master B. And that's when I enjoyed when it comes to Kill Bill. The swordsmanship in Kung Fu. And the bride gets out of there. The casket, which, I guess, yippee. Elle makes it to El Paso, Texas, and to Bud's place, as the bride is walking through the desert, and she makes it back to Bud's. And my problem was, how the fuck did she go on back to Bud's in the desert with no water? Maybe she drank a lot in the diner that she went to earlier after she got out of the cemetery, but it was still unrealistic. Elle delivers Bud's money, and inside was a black mamba snake, which the bride was called the Black in the first place, Black Mamba otherwise, and kills Bud, and which that was pretty realistic, I guess. We find out that the bride's name is Beatrix Kiddo, and the Beatrix versus Elle fight was brutal and hysterical. For example, the two kicked and knocked each other's ass down, to even Elle stabbing Beatrix in the foot with her heel. One of her heels, I should say. Elle tells Beatrix she poisoned Master B, and she's going to kill Beatrix, and they have a brief sword fight until Beatrix takes Elle's other eye out. And we see Master B got one eye out of Elle, and she grabs another eye, squishes it, or stomps it on the ground. And when I first saw this in theaters back in 2004, I was fucking grossed out. I was like, ugh. Okay, let's move on. Beatrix asks Esteban Vejeo in Mexico, in a polite conversation, where's Bill? And eventually, he tells her where he's at and almost shoots Bill until she meets the daughter, BB, as they're pretending to shoot her down as a game for kids. And I did like those scenes, particularly since when Bill talks about comic books with superheroes after they put BB to bed, and he talks about their alter egos, like Batman and Spider-Man and Superman was born as Superman, and Bill shoots Beatrix in the knee with the needle that sticks in her for 2 minutes. And I'm liking all of this, and Beatrix and Bill fight until she does the heart-twisting move and kills him, and she felt very happy or sad about it. I couldn't really tell based on the performance. They're all dead, and she has BB in a hotel, and it was satisfying, but we'll see how I feel about it. Let's just get into it. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 5.4 out of 10. This movie is the weakest film Mr. Tarantino has directed, by far. Maybe I haven't gotten to Death Proof yet. We'll see how that goes. And not counting Four Rooms, because the first hour and 5 minutes I didn't like in El Paso, Texas, because it looked ugly, and the last hour and 11 minutes got much better, especially when David Carradine explained superhero comic books. But I thought the entire Kill Bill experience was fine at best. It was a fine way to go watch a movie. Not the best thing Mr. Tarantino made, but here comes another thing that I'm going to announce next week when it comes to maybe trying to make it a double part. I will be back next week with the Grindhouse experience with Robert Rodriguez's Planet Terror and Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof. And I'm going to figure out how I can do that next week. And until then, and action.